This is the Patriots Drive Podcast.
We are all Patriots.
Where we discuss, analyze, and answer questions to all things happening in the NFL and with our New England Patriots. Now, here's your host, Cole Kelly.
Let's go!
Welcome into another edition of the Patriots Drive Podcast. We got some moves to report. Obviously, I'm sure you guys have heard by now based off our Instagrams and just general NFL news. But Patriots have made some moves, some re-signings. A couple guys have retired. And there's some big names still out there available via trade, free agency, all that stuff. So I'm here with my co-host, Jace Campbell. How's it going, Jace?
It's going good. It was a slow week last time we were live on Monday night. Not a lot happened, day 1, 2, but New England has some big time signings. And although their roster really isn't complete, I still think they have a lot of work to do on both sides of the ball to solidify this team as not only competing in the AFC, but just the AFC East in general. But they took a couple steps in the right direction, and it's refreshing to see. So we'll see how some of the other moves turn out, what else they do, how they approach the draft, things like that. But it was good to see them, towards the end of the week, grab some of these players that they did on some pretty nice contracts and, improve their roster for the better coming into 2023, 2024. So,
yeah, I mean, a lot of the moves they made aren't the most flashy or exciting. I haven't been necessarily upset with any of the moves they've made. It's just I want more. They've done a good job so far. I think they've filled out the depth of the roster. Especially at tackle. Like, that's one thing. I know we have question marks at tackle in general. Who's going to be the starter? Maybe they feel comfortable about one of these guys they signed. It seems like based off contract they might. But overall, if they get a starting caliber tackle, say in the draft, or that's probably their best bet at this point. It's starting caliber tackle in the draft early on, round 1, 2, whatever it ends up being. And he's going to be the starter. We're going to have really good tackle depth, probably the best we've had in years. So I'm happy about that. I like the depth that we're adding. I hope that our depth isn't actually our starters, because that would be disappointing. But I like what we're doing. I like the pieces that we're putting together a little bit more. The picture's starting to come together. I like how we're filling out the roster. Now we just need to add some of those top end talents. Now we just need a starting offensive tackle, whether that's right or left. Now we need an outside corner with some size who can be a number one. We need a number one receiver. We still have a lot missing on this team. We don't have a ton of money left to do it. There's plenty of ways to work the cap. You don't have to address it all in free agency. You can make a big move for a wide receiver. You can address corner and tackle early in the draft. You can do it however you want. There's a bunch of different ways. But overall, I like the plan. I like what they're doing so far. I just need more as far as now go get the big time players that we actually need to be competitive in this division. And like you said, not only this division, but the AFC in general.
yeah, so let's start off with some of the players that New England signed that staying put. New England has a couple people that they re-signed from last year's squad. Linebacker Mac Wilson and Jabril Peppers are probably the bigger names on this list, but Joe Cardona, Cody Davis, and Carl Davis, 2 special teamers. We know how much Bill loves special teams, but on that list right there, Cole, which one do you think is the biggest re-signing, and who do you think, or who are you most excited to have back?
I think I'm most excited for Jabril Peppers. I think he brought, anytime he was on the field, I noticed him. He's flashy. He's aggressive. He hunts for contact. He's a physical player. I'm excited to see him have a bigger role this year with McCourty retiring. I think it's going to be exciting to see how they mix and match these safeties between Duggar, AP, Jabril Peppers. I think they got a pretty good safety room. Now, do we have a true free safety as of right now? Not that we know of, but I think it's going to be exciting to see what Jabril does end up doing and what impact he makes on this team. Now, overall, I'm happy with all these signings. I was surprised to see Cody Davis back after we'll talk about another special team signing, I'm sure, at some point here. But the special teams unit that we have this year should be much improved. Now we need to find a punter and maybe a kicker to replace Folk, depending on how he is age-wise, how he does this year. But overall, our special teams is coming together. They're definitely investing in that. I think Joe Cardona is a huge signing as well. They're paying him like it. I think it was a 4-year extension for him. that's a big piece that not a lot of people really probably think about. It's a long snapper, their chemistry. If you replace the entire special teams unit, kicker, punter, and long snapper, that's a lot to replace in 1 year. If we can just keep Nick Folk and Cardona and then get a new punter, that would be good. If we can get a new kicker, you got to have some continuity. And I think Joe Cardona is one of the best in the business. So keeping him around, we knew Belichick would want to keep him. I believe is he Navy or Army guy? He's one of those. So we knew Bill would like him. But all these guys are exciting. Mac Wilson as well. I was excited about him last year. I thought he showed some flashes early on, but by the end of the year, he was a special teams guy only. So I was a little bit surprised to see him back, but hopefully they actually want to give him a role this year.
Yeah, I like the Mac Wilson one coming back. I think that I was super excited about him because of his versatility and the things that he did for Cleveland. I'm excited to have him back another year in the system, a guy that brings a lot of energy like Jabril Peppers. Those guys are energy dudes right there. They love playing the game. They're physical. They fly around. The thing about the Jabril Peppers one that I love also is, and we don't know what he's going to play, if he's going to be exclusively free safety, but this guy's a Swiss Army knife too. So maybe you move Phillips, maybe you move Jabril Peppers, but he played this is crazy here. I'm going to go for a while. Okay. 41 snaps at D line, 186 snaps in the box, 101 at the slot corner, 28 at wide corner, 42 snaps at free safety. And then obviously he played, a ton of special teams, but you just talk about him lining up as an outside corner, inside the box, on the line of scrimmage as a pass rush guy. He does it all. And we know how Bill Belichick values those guys and how good this defense is when they have guys like that can do that. So to me, that's a big signing, makes me super excited to have him here. And, it just gives us more depth in that safety room, losing Devin McCourty. And now it's going to be interesting to see who they move to that full-time free safety role. And do they draft someone to develop there, or do they move a guy like this? We all thought they'd move Jalen Mills, and that's a guy that we can talk about right here, them cutting him. We all thought that maybe he was a candidate to move back there. Some people have mentioned Jonathan Jones. It's interesting to think of what they're going to do with that free safety position, because for the last, 13 years, it hasn't really been a problem because Devin McCourty.
Yeah, I'd still like to see them add a true free safety. I just think having a guy that what he can do, and that's what he's been, is helpful. But like McCourty said, it might even be more helpful not having one guy who's always in the same spot and you know what to expect. Like McCourty was like, when I was on the field, I'm free safety. Everybody knows that. But when he's not on the field and you have Duggar, who can maybe mix and match there, he played there mostly in college, as we know. When you have AP, who can fill in there, you got maybe Jabril Peppers, who might play some snaps there. Who knows? I think it'll be interesting to see how they mix and match. I think Belichick loves having chess pieces and having versatile players. So if he can do some stuff with that, I'm sure he will. I'm sure he'll use those guys to the best of their ability and really try to mix and match this defense.
Yeah, and it's going to be a unique defense, and I'm excited to see what it does. You mentioned Joe Cardona, how people overlook special teams. If you guys don't know, go look up Weber State versus Montana State this year. They're Cole knows this, I think. 4 bad snaps, and I'm a part of Weber State football. 4 bad snaps, okay? Cost us 8 points, all resulted in safeties. We end up losing the game by 5. Long snapping is never an issue until it's an issue, and then you realize how good it is to have a great long snapper. And our long snapper is great. He didn't have one since then, but you have one game like that, trust me, it is brutal. So long snapping is very important. It's short snapping like that. Nick Folk's been so reliable. He'd never have a chance to put it through the uprights if we didn't have good short snaps by Joe Cardona. So that's a very overlooked part of football, and everyone thinks it's easy, but it's also a very important part. You don't want to have bad snaps. You got to get it off in a certain amount of time, or you're going to be getting those punts blocked, or you're going to have issues with the exchanges. So that's a big signing right there. But other than that, Cody Davis, good special teams guy. Carl Davis, a guy that's kind of just in the rotation, not really a huge name, especially with Barmore and guys like that have been developing, but you never can have enough front seven depth. You see Barmore went down last year. You got to have guys that can step in and, aren't giving up 250 rushing yards a game, because we've seen that too from New England, and it's been rough to watch as a Patriots fan. Those are not the type of games you want to watch. So just defensive line depth doesn't seem like a big signing, but at some point, you got to have depth for those big guys. They get tired throughout the game, so they're always rotating them.
Yeah, and kind of while we're on the special teams topic, I don't know if we have a graphic for this. I'm going to assume we don't, because it was a smaller signing. But Patriots also signed special teamer / linebacker Chris Board from the Lions to a 2-year deal. Belichick called him last year the best special teamer that we'll face all season. Obviously, was a big fan of him. That's just another guy. Now we got Slater, Chris Board, Cody Davis, Joe Cardona, and then Brendan Schooler. Can't forget about him. He impressed me a lot last year. So I think special teams is going to be a lot more exciting to watch this year. The Patriots let up, I think it was like 3 different special teams touchdowns last season, returns for touchdowns. And that was like the same amount they had the past 20 years combined, which is wild. So obviously that was an issue. Coaching as much as personnel. Hopefully they get the coaching side fixed, but they're certainly working on the personnel side.
Yeah, and that Buffalo game was not very fun to watch. And, we might be in the playoffs, or we might have gotten in the playoffs if you don't give up those 2 touchdowns. Who knows? But whenever Bill talks about a guy like that, especially a special teamer, we probably should have just known that he was going to go out and sign him, because he loves those guys. And he'll, maybe he's going to be the Slater replacement. Schooler kind of seems like he's in there, but you can never have enough guys like that. And, Matthew Slater's made a living and made dang good money and a Hall of Fame career resume, Super Bowls off of being a special teams ace. So you can never have enough guys like that. And Bill Belichick and the Patriots always seem to have one. So that's a good solid signing right there for a special teams unit that took a severe dip last year, I'd say. And we don't know who the special teams coordinator is going to be yet, but I don't assume it's not Cam McCord, right? They already said that it's not him, or have they not announced it?
I don't believe they've announced that yet. I was hoping it was going to be Joe Judge, because that was kind of one of our best special teams years that we had. That was when Bailey was an All-Pro, I believe. Also, Jake Bailey signing with the Dolphins, Damian Harris signing with the Bills. So that's a little sad. But I'm not positive who's going to be in charge there. It looks like Joe Judge is kind of like the Matt Patricia replacement as Belichick's overseer or partner. I don't really know how it's going to work, but I think it was McCourty said when he went to retire or whatever, Joe Judge and Belichick were meeting, and it kind of seemed like that was the vibe that was going on there. So we'll see what ends up happening. I don't know if I love that necessarily, but you want to touch on, I guess it's pretty much all offense. Do you want to touch on Jalen Mills? Just kind of your thoughts on that. Not re-signing. He's not officially cut yet. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's maybe they want to add him in some sort of trade, or maybe they did officially cut him at this point. I haven't seen anything today, but what were your thoughts initially on the Jalen Mills cut?
I'll say I was pretty surprised at it. It makes sense. $5.5 million it's a good chunk of money. And he's going to be 29 years old. He's not old, but he's not young. New England always seems to let go of guys sooner rather than later. And you have Jack Jones, Marcus Jones. You have guys that have shown a ton of potential behind him. The one thing that worries me is outside of Sean Wade, and Sean Wade is not very proven for the Patriots. He was our tallest, longest corner, and so it obviously opens up a need, in my opinion, for a big, long corner in the boundary. And not that I don't trust Jack Jones, Marcus Jones, Jonathan Jones, Miles Bryant. I don't think anyone trusts Miles Bryant anymore, but not that it's that I don't trust those guys, but we saw how good of coverage Marcus Jones was in against T. Higgins, and he just had contested catch and contested catch and contested catch. And at some point, height can only take you so far. So adding some length to this cornerback room, I think that's the biggest sign for me. And to me, maybe that's where they're going round one. I don't know. Maybe they go sign. I think Marcus Peters is still out there. A couple free agents that have a little bit more veteran experience and length, but now you really lack experience and size on the outside at that cornerback position. And that's where it gets a little scary for me. Not that it's the end of the world, but we really just don't have that big, long, lengthy corner that can lock down a true number one receiver like T. Higgins, guys like that we faced last year. And that seems to be a concern for me right now.
I believe he was our only starting corner over 6 feet tall, over 5'11".
Yeah.
Like, really lacking size to a room that already needed to add a corner. We just cut the depth even more. And I get it. $5 million is not nothing, but that's not a lot for a starting caliber corner if you feel like he's going to contribute. So obviously, I know he's had his health issues a little bit. He's missed some big games, missed some key games, the Buffalo playoff game. He also missed probably half the season last year with injury. I don't know. I was surprised. I thought he had been solid in the time he was playing here. I thought he had some safety versatility that maybe to be able to mix and match him. He just saw the tweet that said, "You guys know I'm a hybrid, a true hybrid, true safety, whatever." I thought he was going to be sticking around, and to be honest with you, I was a big fan of Jalen Mills. I liked him a lot. I thought he brought a lot of energy. I thought he stepped in and played well his first year here. Did he have the best year two? Not necessarily. We didn't see him on the field a lot, though. So last year was a tough year in general for a lot of guys. I like Jalen Mills. I definitely was surprised. If they're drafting a corner round 1 and they're trading for a receiver with this extra cap space, I love that. If they're going to draft a corner late or add some cheap guy and this is kind of the room they're going to go in with and they're not really going to add a receiver, I don't know. It's so hard to judge these moves until we see why they're actually making the move. So come training camp, when we know what the roster is going to be, come after the draft, then we'll kind of be able to put our full thoughts together on this and see, okay, what was the purpose of this? Why did they do this? And what did they get out of that $5 million and cutting him? So I would love to see them package Jalen Mills and a second rounder for Jerry Jeudy, like to do something like that. You know what I mean? Try to go get a guy like that. Well, I don't see that happening, but I don't know. I definitely was surprised.
Yeah, and I mean, he didn't play past week 12. He plays weeks 1 through 12, so our first 11 games because of the bye at week 10. And then he doesn't really play. And I agree with you. Year 1 for Jalen Mills was probably better than year 2, and I think most Patriots fans would agree with him. People were a little hard on him last year. I think he was still solid. It wasn't like he was horrible. He was.
They
still
were really hard on him year 1 too.
That's true.
Like year 1, everybody was like, Jalen Mills stinks. I was like, I thought he was one of the most underrated Patriots his first year here. Everybody hated on him like he was the worst player ever because he had a couple mistakes against like CeeDee Lamb and stuff. But overall, I think Jalen Mills was a solid player here.
Yeah, and I like what Joey says right here. Oh, sorry, he just pulled it up. Sorry, Ashton, about Joey Porter's. Yeah, like for me, what makes sense? Trade a second-round pick and a player for DeAndre Hopkins or Jerry Jeudy. Go draft Joey Porter or Christian Gonzalez or Witherspoon if they're at 14. And then, yeah, you're going to have to do some work at tackle somehow in the draft, find a guy late, but Bill has done that before. Yeah, that makes the most sense to me. Now, is that what's going to happen? Probably not. That's probably way far from what's going to happen. But there's ways to make this like make sense. It's not far-fetched. There is totally ways for New England to go out there and make this, this cut and a couple of the other things and improve the defensive secondary, the offensive pass catchers like we already have. But there's ways to make it happen. It's just, we know how Bill operates. We know how this offseason and the draft process goes. And very rarely does it go like we think it's going to go. And so that's, for me, I don't know if that's what Bill's thinking. I hope it is. That would be incredible, but who knows?
Yeah, kind of while we're on the topic wide receiver, we'll touch on some of the guys we did sign, or the guy that we did sign. Patriots add Corvette, Juju Smith-Schuster to a 3-year, $33 million contract. And that is kind of the general terms of it. It actually is even better of a deal than that, where I believe it was only 16 mil guaranteed, something like that. And a lot of it's incentive based. So
I have it right here. Sorry. So $8.5 million average salary, 16 million guaranteed, then a ton of incentives, a ton of bonuses and stuff like that.
Yes. So. Okay. And real quick, so we were talking about safety earlier. Taylor Rapp is one of the players that we met with. he went and met with the Bengals as well. This was a guy I was interested in adding to that free safety room. I think he would be a good true free safety there. So, but yeah, so that's a really solid deal. That's better than Jacoby's as far as value wise. I would rather have Juju for this price than Jacoby for his price. And I know Jacoby's contract is kind of weird as far as it's technically like a 1-year deal that if he plays the full year or whatever it is, then it'll turn into a 3-year. I don't know, but I'm happy with it. I like the signing as long as this isn't the only signing. And that's where I've been on this from the start. If they add a true number one receiver, I love this signing because that means not only are they addressing the number one receiver, but they're adding a guy who has more upside and more after the catch playmaking ability than Jacoby did in the slot. He can play outside. He can play inside. He's probably going to stick in the slot mostly. But I think what Juju Smith-Schuster does, like I just mentioned, he adds so much more versatility to the pass catching room as far as after the catch, one of the best receivers in the NFL after the catch. I think he was top 5 for average yards over expected after the catch last year in the same conversation as a guy like Deebo Samuel, which is ridiculous. Juju Smith-Schuster, great signing as long as he's not the only one. If this is their number one receiver, this is their big plan to fix the wide receiver room, it's not enough. It's not enough. He's not a number one receiver. He's not a guy who can backpack an offense. As soon as Antonio Brown left that team, he could not hold the weight of a number one receiver. Travis Kelce was the number one weapon as far as the Chiefs go. Juju Smith-Schuster, if he can't be a number one with Patrick Mahomes, he can't be a number one with anybody. That's my opinion on that. So got to add a number one, but if you do, I love this signing.
Yeah, no, I really like it. He had the 10th most yards after the catch for receivers. He's above Stephon Diggs, above Cooper Kupp, Jerry Jeudy, Jamar Chase, Terry McLaurin. The Patriots' highest guy was Jacoby last year at 242 yards. Juju Smith-Schuster had 263. So he doubles that production right there. So we talked about this I love Jacoby. Like it killed me to see him go. I do think 11 million is pretty reasonable for Jacoby, but you're telling me a contract for Juju at this pretty much just 3 years, 33 million. It's the same, like take out incentives, take out all that. I'm probably taking Juju Smith-Schuster too. I think that he has that, it factor to him. Yeah, people are not really going to like some of the stuff he's done off the field with TikTok, but he said today he was excited to play for Bill Belichick. He's excited to be here. He's excited to play with Mac Jones, be in the Bill O'Brien style offense and stuff. So I think it's a good signing. I think I'm 100% on the same page as you, is where as soon as he signed, you texted me and said, this can't be the only signing. And I said, I agree. Like Juju Smith-Schuster as a number 2 receiver is going to be a very, very, very productive receiver. You pair him with Hopkins, you pair him with Jeudy, you pair him with someone else that's has number 1 wide receiver caliber. This suddenly goes from a mediocre pass catching offense to a really good pass catching offense. And then you're going to see Kendrick Bourne step up, Tyquan Thornton step up, just guys that were supposed to be back end guys that can be really productive receivers going against cornerback number 3s or 4s. Their play is going to be elevated. So I love the signing. I hope they keep adding pass catchers for Mac Jones, but this is a step in the right direction. At first I thought Bill was letting Jacoby go just because he didn't want to pay receivers, but then you kind of get some faith here saying, oh, you know what? He goes out and gets a better guy for a better contract. And, maybe there's some faith here.
Yeah, I like it. Like we both said, as long as it's not the only thing. I think he's a talented receiver. I think he offers more after the catch. But this is one thing I've seen that I kind of want to touch on real quick. From Ashton says he has a feeling Belichick is betting on Tyquan to take a leap and become our wide receiver 1. I think that's a big gamble. I think we saw a couple flashes here and there from Tyquan. I don't think we saw nearly enough to say this guy's going to be our dominant number 1 receiver. This year is so important, and I can't emphasize this enough. So important for Mac Jones and finding out if he is your quarterback of the future or not. And what is the best way to do that? Surround him with weapons and find out when he has a good situation around him and a real offensive coordinator, what can he be? Where can he take this football team? I think he could take the team pretty far. Give him those weapons. So give him those weapons and surround him with good players and see what he can do. I think he's talented. I think if you give him a real system and a real offense, he's going to take this team places. So I think betting on Taekwon to be our number one and take this ginormous leap and just dominate, I think that's a huge gamble to take. And you shouldn't be taking any more gambles. You gambled the entire year away last season for Mac by putting Matt Patricia in charge of the offense. That was ridiculous. You can't waste any more of this kid's time. You got to find out this year. Pony up, get the weapons, and actually give your guy a chance to find out what he can do. You got to do it this year. There's no more excuses. We do this every year. We talk about this. How long has it been since we've had a number one receiver? Forever. Maybe you could say Brandon Cooks. You want to go further than that? Probably Randy Moss. It's ridiculous. You don't have Brady anymore to make up for mistakes. You have to get him a number one. We have not been competitive, and there's not a lot of teams competitive without a number one weapon in today's NFL.
Yeah, it's exciting. And what I like about Juju a little bit, and Jacoby could do it too. I'd have to pull up the exact stats, but Juju can line up inside or outside, and I think he's very effective. Jacoby, when you thought of him, was more of that inside slot receiver. I'm going to pull it up right now. But when you think of Juju, and I have a film review coming out of Juju Smith-Schuster for the just kind of evaluating his fit with the Patriots, and he's got catches and he's got great routes all over the field. He lines up over the field. He's effective. Jacoby Myers had twice as many snaps from the slot as he did from inside. Juju Smith-Schuster only had 50 more snaps out wide than in the slot. So, he lines up outside. He lines up inside. He's not any younger. They're both pretty much the exact same age at 26 years old. And then Juju maybe loses I think a foot. I think he's 6'1", Jacoby 6'2", but Juju's a little bit bigger, which you can see when he has the ball in his hands, he's hard to bring down. He can make guys miss. He can run through arm tackles. He's a physical runner, and bring some passion to the game. So I love the signing. I do agree with what Mike says right here. You can't rely on last year's stats, because in a ton of the highlights that I was looking at for Juju and debating on putting on there,
running crazy.
A lot of them really is Mahomes. It really is. And as much as I hate Mahomes, he extends a lot of plays, but I do think that Juju has the ability. And I do think that Bill O'Brien is going to have some creativity with Juju Smith-Schuster. And obviously that's why we want him to get a number one wide receiver, because now if they're doubling DeAndre Hopkins or Jerry Jeudy or someone on the outside, and this leaves Juju Smith-Schuster one-on-one, then I think that it's a lot better fit for the Patriots, and you're going to see a lot better numbers for Juju Smith-Schuster in this offense.
Yeah, I agree. It was funny watching his Chiefs highlights. It was like half the plays were solid plays by him, and the other half was Mahomes running around and finding him there. So it's like,
yeah,
I don't know. And I was using the comp, not adding to his stats, taking away, as far as if Mahomes, the best quarterback in the world, can't make Juju a number one receiver, who's going to be able to do that? All those off-schedule plays too that Mahomes makes, and that would normally be a sack for a quarterback, padding people's stats. If he can't put up number one numbers like that, I don't think he can do it with anybody. So I like Juju. I do. I think he's a great complementary piece, but that's what he is, a number two, a complementary piece to a number one receiver. When AB was in Pittsburgh, Juju had a crazy good year. I mean, people thought this was going to be a crazy dynamic duo for years to come. And then as soon as that number one was taken away and the attention got on Juju, he wasn't the same guy. So not only get the help for Mac, but help out your receivers too, because getting a guy like DeAndre or Juju pushes everybody further down and gets them better matchups. You're going to help Juju have a better matchup. You're going to help KB, Tyquan Thornton, Devontae Parker. All these guys have better matchups. Go get a number one. I can't say it enough times. Juju had AB. But I'm saying once AB was gone, Juju is not the same player. He couldn't be a number one after that. So I think if you're betting on Juju Smith-Schuster to be a number one dominant receiver and transform this offense, I think that's a huge gamble, just as much as Tyquan being a number one. I think that's a gamble as well. You got to get a true number one receiver. We can't keep half-assing this wide receiver position. It's getting ridiculous. I mean, How many times have we gone over the list of playoff teams, Super Bowl contending teams? They all have a number one weapon. They all do. We don't need to keep going over this, but you guys know this by now. If you're going to be competitive in the NFL, you got to have a big time weapon, and we just don't. We just keep trying to get by with these solid number 2, number 3 receivers, and it's not going to work.
Yeah, it really isn't. But let's talk about the other offensive addition right here, another pass catcher for Mac Jones. Bringing in a familiar face from the AFC East. Some of the Patriots have played a lot. Patriots signing former Dolphins tight end Mike Gesicki to a 1-year, $4.5 million contract after they traded Jonnu Smith. Now it's a lot more than 4.5. That's just his base salary right there. I'm pretty sure
it
it's
can go
really
up to 9.
based. Yes,
it can go up to 9
so,
with incentives, but it's $4.5 million for him is great value.
Yeah, and I remember a couple people asking us last live stream if this was an option, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really think it was. I was like, Hunter Henry's off the contract or off the books this year. I wonder if they just go get a tight end in the draft because it's a really deep tight end class. And someone set it up here. Where'd it go? Yeah, there it is, Mike. How many tight ends they got to draft just to keep the position alive? I mean, after this year, Hunter Henry, Mike Gesicki, both off contracts. That doesn't mean they can't re-sign them, but I still think it's a probability that you go out and you draft a tight end in the 4th or 5th, maybe earlier, depending on who you value there, and start developing them for the next couple years, because this is a very deep tight end class. Now, just talking about the now, we wanted to see what Jonnu Smith would do in Bill O'Brien's offense in 2 tight end sets. Well, now we're going to get Mike Gesicki, and I still would have been excited to see what Jonnu could have done just because of what he does after the catch and if you use him the right way. But Mike Gesicki's a big-bodied 6'6" tight end, is great over the middle. I do have a film review coming out within the next couple of weeks after the Juju one of him too. But going over his film, he's a big target over the middle, and I think him and Hunter Henry are going to create some big mismatches with their bodies in the middle of the field. They're going to be hard to guard by safeties. They're going to be too fast for linebackers, and I'm really excited about this signing and think this is another big time one by the Patriots. It's not a huge name, but this is another one that if you go get a wide receiver one, it's going to be really good.
Exactly. I agree with you there. I didn't think Gesicki was super realistic for us either, just because I didn't think he was Belichick's type of tight end. Belichick wants a guy who's going to be able to block and have he likes versatile players, and Gesicki is a big wide receiver. He's not a guy who loves going and blocking. He's not going to be a dominant guy in the run game, but he is a mismatch, and Belichick knows that because he's had to try to defend him twice a year for the past 4 or 5 years, whatever it is. So I like the signing, and I think it's great value. The 1 year thing, I almost wish we got him for more years. I like how it's heavily incentive based, though. He's got to do good. I think he's going to add a big time red zone weapon for us. That was something we struggled with a lot the past couple of years. If Henry can bounce back to being his red zone threat self that he was Mac's rookie year, and you got Gesicki and you got Devontae Parker, you got a lot of size on that team. And then we'll see how Juju does, and we'll see if we can add a number one receiver, whether that's Judy or OBJ or Hopkins, but those are all guys that can be threats in the red zone. So I like that a lot. I like the signing. I'm a big fan of it. As far as the tight end question goes, we got 3 4th-round picks this year. I wouldn't be surprised if 2 of them are tight ends. We did that with Asiasi and Keene. We tried double dipping late in the 3rd. That didn't work out great. This is a really deep tight end class. I think you can get some value for guys in that range. I wouldn't be surprised if they grab. I would be shocked if they didn't grab at least 1 tight end, but I wouldn't be surprised if they grabbed a couple.
Yeah, I think I keep mocking it in my mock drafts. To me, it makes too much sense. After these guys go next year, how likely is it you bring back both of them? I would love it if they go have a great year, but I don't know if it's likely you bring back both of them. So then you go out and sign one of them. Say you bring back Gesicki or Henry. Well, Bill O'Brien loves his 2 tight end sets. So who are you going to have in there? The guys on roster outside of these 2 are nowhere near what we need to. So I think drafting a tight end in one of those rounds makes way too much sense also. And I'm all for it. Like, I am not against it. I think that Bill, if you can find a tight end in the 4th or 5th round, there's a couple guys, one out of Old Dominion, Zach Kuntz, who is a big physical and he tested freakishly athletic. And that's the other thing I totally forgot I was going to mention this until I just said freakishly athletic, but Mike Gesicki, his times in the 2018 combine, like he didn't, his weight, he's a little light, which is why he sucks in run blocking. Like he was like the 10th lowest graded run blocker on PFF for tight ends, like horrible run blocking. But he had a 41-inch vertical, 10'9" broad, 4.54 40-yard dash, 2.65 20-yard split, 1.56 10-yard split, and then a 4.1 on the 20-yard shuttle and a 6.76 on the 3-cone. That's if you guys follow Raw Athletic Score on Twitter, stuff like that. He got a 9.97, and he's measuring at 6'5.5" and 247, like a big athletic dude that can run, that can move, is great in and out of his breaks. I really like this signing. And like you mentioned, I'm surprised Bill brought him in because he is that bad of a run blocker, but I think Bill Bryant's going to do some really unique stuff with Mike Gesicki, and you're going to see, some very, very wide open play designs for him that he's going to be able to take advantage of, and he might make some freakishly good catches.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. And I just want to touch on this comment as well. Why are both guys gone after the season? I'm not saying both guys are going to be gone, but they drafted Keenan Asiasi, and neither one of those hit. So if you're saying that both of those 4th-round picks are guaranteed to hit and they're going to be starting caliber tight ends, that's not a guarantee. We'd be lucky if one of those hits and it's a starting caliber tight end. So I think if you grab 2, you got a better chance there. Grab a couple guys that you like. I'm sure one of them will be gone at least, maybe even both. But I would lean Hunter Henry stays more than Gesicki. But I like it.
This seems like a 1-year prove-it deal for Gesicki, right? To go somewhere else.
Exactly. He had a down year last year. I'm sure he's going to reset his value this year. So I like it. Like Mike says here, it sucks that it's only a 1-year deal. I agree there.
The other thing about that comment is, who thought that New England was going to draft 2 running backs last year, right? Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, Ty Montgomery. Like who thought that they were going to draft 2? Well, they both start, injured on practice squad. What happens when Ramondre gets hurt or when Damian Harris gets hurt? You bring up a guy. Like if Mike Gesicki or Hunter Henry go down, is Bill Bryant just going to throw out his 2 tight end sets because one of them got hurt? No, I don't think he wants to do that. You got to have depth at that position, and the guys we have behind them are horrible. Now, I don't know if they take 2 tight ends like they did Asiasi and Keene, because I think that was not very smart, but I think that they for sure take 1. And if they do take 2, I mean, then you just know probably both of these guys aren't coming back. Or even if one of them does, yeah, you probably don't carry 3 tight ends, but we've seen crazier on this roster where Bill takes a, talent and then sits them for their first year, puts them on practice squad, puts them on the pup list, the IR, something like that. Like we've seen Bill do this. He's going to stack talent. He's going to have something there. So I am still all for drafting a tight end, especially you don't know what next year's draft class is going to look like at this position. They might, Brock Bowers is going to be good out of Georgia. There's going to be those guys that are up there, but there's not going to be the depth in this tight end class. So why it's there, go ahead, take a tight end. Like 4th round, go take a tight end. I really don't care. 3 4th round picks, yes, go take a tight end. I am all for that. There's no problem. And knowing Bill, he probably trades down from pick 14 and gains another 3rd or 2nd round pick or something. So yes, take a tight end with one of those 4th round picks. I am all for that. There's no hesitation from me.
Yeah, and would I take 2 with 2 fourths? No. But would I be shocked? No. I would take 1 in that range from the 3rd to the 5th round. You got 3 fourths, like we said. Take a tight end there. Take a shot. I mean, like you just said, especially Hunter Henry has had injury issues with the Chargers. He's been healthier so far, knock on wood here. Hopefully that continues. But if you lose one of those guys, you got to have somebody to replace him, just like you just mentioned the whole thing with the running backs. I'm not sure. So what's your plan? Where are my entertainers? What's your plan? Both tight ends walk next offseason. You don't draft one this year, then what? That's a horrible plan. You gotta have insurance. Like that's how we ended up with Keenan Asiasi as our 2 starting tight ends, is because we had no plan and we had to draft them and throw them into starting positions immediately. You take a guy in the 4th, you let him develop behind these 2 Pro Bowl caliber tight ends. Let Hunter Henry teach him his great route running. Gesicki's just got size and athleticism. The Zach Kuntz guy, maybe he could teach him something, how to use his athleticism. Not that he's an athlete. So, but I'm just saying, you can't just say, oh, because we have 2 Pro Bowl caliber tight ends, we don't need to ever draft a tight end. No, they could both leave next year. Hopefully, we sign one to an extension, but you got to be prepared in case you don't. And even if you do sign one to an extension, you need 2, especially in this type of offense.
Yeah, I agree. And he says wide receiver, O-line, D-line, corner, safety, pass catching, running back, dime, linebacker, all ahead of tight end now. I mean, wide receiver, O-line, cornerback, safety, I'd agree with. We all know Bill's going to take D-line depth at some time, and edge rusher. I don't know if I'd rather I'd probably put tight end 4th on that list. Pass catching running back.
The list
James
that he's
Robinson
giving right now
was a great pass catching running back.
The list that he's giving right now, I would agree with as far as this year is a need. But the draft isn't about addressing needs for just this year. The draft is about planning for your future. And as far as the future goes, I know Duggar's a free agent next year, so safety, I would agree there. But I think we would be in quite a pickle if both those guys walk next year, which is very much a possibility. You don't know. They could both price themselves out. I would extend Hunter Henry right now as well. I have confidence in him. I agree with you there. I just don't know that Gesicki's going to be. I'm sure they tried to lock him in for more than a year, and he probably wanted a prove-it deal. So we'll see. We'll see if he sticks around. I hope they both do. I'm excited about this duo. I think Bill will want a blocking tight end anyways that he'll take later in the draft. Maybe that's a 6th-round pick like the Entertainers guy says. We'll see where it ends up. But I just think you got to plan for the future, and you can't just say, just because we got these 2 guys now, they're on 1-year deals. You got to be prepared for the future.
For sure. Well, let's keep moving along. Let's move on to another offensive weapon we had. James Robinson, they bring him in. Damian Harris goes to Buffalo after, but James Robinson comes in, 2-year, $8 million contract to pair up with Ramondre Stevenson. I love this deal. James Robinson was so good in Jacksonville, and we haven't seen that same spark. When Urban Meyer was there, they honestly just did not run it with him, and it was kind of a shame. But if you can get half of what James Robinson was his rookie year to spell Ramondre, this is a great signing, and I love this, and it's a new backfield running mate with Ramondre Stevenson that I think can be really, really good.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he certainly showed flashes. I mean, he looked like a top-tier running back early on, and then he had his injury, which I know Achilles injuries are tough for running backs, but if he can kind of bring back a little bit of that spark that he had, like you said, I think he would be a really intriguing guy next to Ramondre, and that would kind of lock up that room. I hope he doesn't take all the opportunities away from Pierre Strong, because I do want to see him continue to develop, but BPA is best player available, MA football guy. Yeah, okay, there you go. Their answer. Oh, look who decided to show up. Boston headline. What's up, Michael? But yeah, I like the signing as well. I think it's interesting seeing the Damian Harris number with Buffalo and seeing this, but I like you kind of mentioned, I just think maybe this offers a little more passing upside than Damian Harris did. So, Bill likes that a lot. Yeah,
for sure. Carlos asks, who do you think the odd man out is, Kevin Harris or Montgomery? Honestly, I feel like, I don't know. I know Montgomery was a big part of the game plan last year before he got hurt in game 1. And he showed some flashes. But I feel like it's got to be Kevin Harris. I was surprised when they drafted Kevin Harris in the first place, just after they had drafted Pierre Strong. I understand why they did it, but I feel like you got Ramondre, James Robinson, Pierre Strong, Montgomery, Kevin Harris is probably down there. So I mean, I think both of them are a little bit on the short end of the stick, but Kevin Harris out of those 2 is who I'm going to choose.
Yeah, Carlos, how's it going? I think it depends what you get from James Robinson. Honestly, if he's the guy in the passing game and they feel comfortable with that, maybe Montgomery's the odd guy out. But I'm going to have to agree with you. I think Kevin Harris is. Maybe we can get him on the practice squad. I completely agree with the tier list you just gave. I think it's Ramondre, number 1, and then 2A and 2B is Montgomery and Pierre Strong. I mean, Montgomery, James Robinson and Pierre Strong, and then 3 would be Montgomery. So Kevin Harris is probably going to be the odd man out there.
Yeah, for sure. Let's keep. You got anything else on James Robinson?
No. I just, if he can stay healthy and year 2 without Achilles healing, I think it'll be good. But he did struggle for the Jets last year, so it's not a guarantee. There's not even a guarantee he'll make the roster, and we might be talking about this different. If he's not healthy and he's not his old self, he might not even make the team. So I think it's a high upside addition where if he can give you what you hope he can, he'll be worth that 2 years, $8 million.
For sure. Well, I'm going to run a quick ad break. When we come back, we have 2 more little topics to discuss, and then we will kind of wrap it up. But right now, let's go to an ad break from Underdog Fantasy. Real quick, guys, we'd like to thank today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. With Underdog's NFL Pick'em, they make it super easy to win big on any given night. They have individual player props or daily fantasy and are legal in 41 of the 50 states. Right now, they are doubling your first deposit up to $100 when you use code PATSDRIVE or use the link in the description. All you have to do is select higher or lower and submit your wager for as low as $1 to win anywhere from 3 times to 20 times your money. You can also compete against thousands in Underdog Fantasy's daily fantasy tournaments ranging anywhere from football to baseball to basketball. Whatever sport it is, there's a tournament for you. Now with Underdog's Pick'em Insurance, you can still win money even if one of your picks does not hit. So head over to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app. Make sure to use code PATCHDRIVE or use the link in our description to get started today. All right, yeah, make sure you guys do that if you guys want to get in on some sports betting. But let's jump right into it. See a couple comments right here. A little bit of offensive tackle depth, not the big names that we thought, but the Patriots signed offensive tackle Calvin Anderson to a 2-year, $7 million contract and Riley Reif to a 1-year, $5 million contract. Reif is an experienced veteran, a guy that has played a lot of football for the Bengals, the Bears, a couple other teams. And then Calvin Anderson's a high upside guy that tested pretty dang well, is super good or is super athletic for a tackle, but kind of lacks that elite size that would get him paid the big bucks. But what are your thoughts on, the Patriots just adding a couple swing guys and depth and not really that top tier offensive tackle?
I'm okay with it as long as they're drafting one early. But if they're not, this is kind of scary. It feels like you're putting a lot of faith into Adrian Clem, your new offensive line coach, into building this offensive line with some scrap pieces. I mean, these guys aren't top tier players. They're probably below average to average tackles. I believe Anderson only started what was it, 10 games last year on a bad Broncos offensive line. And then Riley Reif is what he is. 35 years old. He's getting older. It's not like these guys are trending upwards. If anything, they're trending the other way as far as Reif goes. So I don't know. I like it a lot as depth pieces. I hope that's what it is, depth pieces. And I like that they can play both sides. I like that you can kind of mix and match them a little bit. We know Trent Brown has an injury history. If we draft the guy in the first round or second round and he needs a little time to develop, you can feel confident that one of these guys is going to step in and do that. And if somebody gets injured, you feel like you're not going to be screwed. I think we have a lot of depth now, given some of the re-signings we made earlier, and then these couple signings right here. I like where we're at as far as offensive tackle depth goes.
Yeah, I'm fine with Trent Brown still. I know he had a bad year last year. I'm fine with moving him to right tackle and drafting a left tackle early, or finding a right tackle a little bit later in the draft, maybe day 2 or something. I'm fine with that and keeping Trent Brown, but you got to have tackle depth. We saw last year with Isaiah Wynn, with Trent Brown, the offensive line was just shuffled week after week. And so you got to have some tackle depth. You bring in an experienced guy like Reif, who has struggled, but Bill finds guys like this and usually seems to at least revives their career for a year or two. It'll only be a year for the Patriots, but then Calvin Anderson, a high upside guy that hasn't panned out. Not incredible career so far, but a guy that has experience playing at least, and someone that won't be thrust into there like a rookie would or something like that. So just a couple offensive tackle helps that's exciting for the Patriots there. But, I think Orlando Brown, Mike McGlinchey were the guys that Patriots fans had on their radar, and that was too good to be true.
Yeah, no, I agree. And kind of your point on Trent Brown, I think he has a bounce back year, but if they don't, they can save a lot of money cutting him. I think it's like
Yeah.
$10 million. So the only thing there is that puts you in a real hole at tackle and corner, and you almost have to address that in the draft early. I don't know. I could still stand Broderick Jones in round one. I agree. I'm a football guy. This was something that I actually just participated in a like fantasy page mock draft the other day, and I traded up to 12 and took Broderick Jones in the first round. So I wouldn't be opposed to that either. I think taking tackle early is still a good idea, depending on who's there on the board. If they don't like a guy at tackle or at corner, they might just trade back in that situation. But they have so many picks, so there's so many different things they can do if they want to trade up. This would be a year to do it.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of positions they could draft. They could address round one. I don't know what they do. They probably go punter or something, just to surprise us Patriots fans. But there's a lot of positions they could go round one. But offensive tackle with you look at the depth up there and the elite guys. I think there's going to be probably two of them, maybe at least one of them. So you can grab one of those top three guys, or you could trade back and grab Antoine Harrison, DeJuan Jones, guys like that probably make it to the later half of the first round and address those needs. But offensive tackle help. And then let's talk some trade rumors here for a minute. I know it's just rumors, and we hear this as Patriots fans, but there's a report coming out right now. I'm not going to pull this graphic up yet because this is a different report. But Benjamin Albright of Denver's
okay. I was just going to say that.
Were you just going to read this?
I literally have it pulled up right here. I was about to say that. Yeah, go ahead.
It's interesting. It's talking about the Browns could possibly pull off a trade for Jerry Jeudy. It also says the Broncos supposedly at least pondered an offer for a second and fourth round pick, possibly from the Patriots. So I don't know if that's confirmed that the Patriots offered that, but I know the asking price has been a first or a second round pick and a player is what that people have been saying. But and that's kind of the same price for Arizona. I don't know if they get that for D-Hop. I would rather give that for Jerry Jeudy because Judy's younger and he has that experience with Mac. I think that's what it is for DeAndre Hopkins too, though. The Cardinals have said that. I think the Cardinals have said they want a first round pick, but or a second and a high player. The Jeudy one that I just read. Sorry, I probably confused you guys. The Patriots offered a second and a fourth, but the Denver's holding out for a first. I don't know that they're going to get that, but at least interesting that we're hearing reports that there was a second and a fourth round pick offered to the Broncos that was pondered. Could be the Patriots or not. We'll see. But that would be I would pull that I would do that in a heartbeat. You can go corner or tackle round one at 14. You could trade down to the 20s, get an extra third round pick, still a draft one of those positions, and then gain extra top 100 picks. But if that was the asking price, I don't know why New England wouldn't.
Yeah, and it might just be they didn't accept that. I don't know. And so I don't know what you think about this, and maybe this is probably a discussion for another day. Maybe you can give your quick thoughts on it. How would you feel about a second rounder and a guy like Uche? Uche's on the last year of his deal.
Yeah.
He's a guy who doesn't fit great in the Patriots system as far as run blocking goes. He's flashy with numbers with the pass rush when he can pin his ears back. We know Denver likes having guys who can rush the passer. How would you feel about a situation like that if they're not planning on re-signing him?
I do it because Uche to me seems like a guy, if he has another great year, Bill Belichick will let walk because he won't pay him the money. And Bill always seems to draft more guys that are productive on the edge. He finds Josh Uche's in the fourth and fifth rounds. So I probably would do it. I really would. And it would suck because Uche and Matt Judon were so productive last year. And it was so refreshing to see them both, be up there in sacks and have that dynamic duo. But you're telling me that we can go out and get a surefire number one wide receiver that has chemistry with Mac Jones and is still young. We have had way more success drafting edge players than we have finding a number one receiver. So I'd do it if that's what they're asking. I 100% would do it.
I would as well. I would do that. I would do the second and fourth. I would even throw in another pick if they want. Like, just go get this kid. Jerry Jeudy is young. He played with Mac Jones. I don't know. I like his upside. I like his talent. DeAndre Hopkins, I don't think there's any way he gets a first or a second. Maybe a second. I don't think there's any way he gets they get a first round pick in return for him. Brandon Cooks just went for, what was it, a fifth and a sixth?
Yeah.
And you're telling me that DeAndre Hopkins, who, unless he significantly reduces his cap hit and kind of restructures his deal, I think a second or a third is probably what he's going to go for. I think a first would be surprising at this point. But like Mike says, this is the price you pay when you can't draft cheap rookie receivers who produce. You gotta overpay for these guys sometimes. Go get Jerry Jeudy, give him a contract, and set aside the need for a number one receiver for the next 4 or 5 years, whatever it is. You just go do it. It would immediately fix the wide receiver position. You got weapons for Mac. You got no excuses. Get it done. I would love that. I would love, at this point, Jeudy is my number one target. My number two would be probably D-Hop, and number three would be OBJ. But you got to get one of them. And Jerry Jeudy is the youngest. He'll be in his prime for the longest, and he's trending upwards. If he can stay healthy, working with a guy he's already worked with, Mac Jones, they know each other well, I think it'd be a perfect fit. So I hope Belichick doesn't cheap out over a difference of like a fourth or a third or something like that. We have 3 fourth-round picks. You can trade up to the third if you want to. Like, just get the deal done, get the player in the building, and worry about picks later. It's not like all these guys produce anyways from the draft for us. Like, I don't know.
I really don't think we need. How do we have 9 picks? Or are we at 10 now?
11.
We have a ton. Like, we do have a lot of picks. So, for me, trade those picks. Get that number one receiver. Where my entertainer says that we'll be crying in 2 years, we still have no number. I would rather go out and trade for Jerry Jeudy and have it fail miserably than sit on our thumbs and not do anything and let Mac go do something. Okay,
this has got to be the one Pats fan like recently that I've seen that thinks Tyquan Thornton is going to be our savior. You can't bet on that. How long have we not had a number one? We need to go get something. Like you were just saying, Jace, you got to do something. We can't keep sitting on our hands here and just hoping that it works out and we can have this explosive offense with a bunch of average receivers. Go get a guy who's good, who can produce, and is going to contribute to this offense, and give your quarterback some weapons.
Especially when you have the Dolphins improving, you have Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs in your division. You're going to add Aaron Rodgers at some point. He's going to come. Like that's. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster wouldn't even be a number.
I mean, that's ridiculous.
Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. Juju's not better than them. I don't even know if Juju Smith-Schuster's better than Gabe Davis. He definitely ain't better than Stephon Diggs, and he's probably. If you're telling me choose between Juju Smith-Schuster or Garrett Wilson any day of the week, and then Juju's probably a wide receiver too. Juju Smith-Schuster would not be a number one wide receiver on any team in the AFC East. And if we sit here and rely on him with a third-year quarterback,
how about the NFL?
Yeah.
How many teams in the NFL is Juju Smith-Schuster or Tyquan Thornton a number one? Any? A number one weapon? He was a number one receiver on the Chiefs, but they have Travis Kelce. That's a whole different scenario. I don't understand this thought that Juju Smith-Schuster and Tyquan Thornton and Devontae Parker are these number one receivers. If they're so good, why did we suck so bad last year? They're not the save. They're not going to fix this offense. You got to get a number one. Name one team. Where are my entertainers? Name one team that is a true Super Bowl contender without a number one weapon. And I say weapon because Travis Kelce is basically a receiver who can block a little bit, but he's a weapon. We've said this 100 times, but I guess he hasn't been here for some of them. The Eagles, Devontae Smith and AJ Brown being the number one. Buffalo has Stephon Diggs. The Chiefs have Travis Kelce. The Bengals have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. I mean, the Dolphins, their offense is ridiculous. Their defense was holding them down a little bit last year, but You go down the list. When the Rams won it, they had Cooper Kupp.
Cooper, yep.
The
OBJ,
Niners, they have
right?
Debo Samuel. Yeah, OBJ. They had
Brandon Ayuk.
The Niners had Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey. All these guys. It's just you got to get a number one receiver to compete in the NFL. It's not the 2000. It's not the early 2000s anymore. You don't have Tom Brady. He can't make up for all these mistakes. I get you want to spread the ball. I love the depth we have at receiver, but you got to make a bigger splash. You have to. At Juju, I understand Juju is probably our splash, but that's why we're not going to be competitive in even our division, and absolutely not for a Super Bowl. So we can continue. If you're okay with being mediocre, having an average offense, not really knowing if our quarterback is a franchise quarterback or not, then that's fine. We can keep Juju as our number one guy. We can pretend that he's going to save this offense along with Tyquan Thornton and Devontae Parker, and we can have another average year and maybe squeak into the playoffs or maybe not. I just take a shot on somebody. You don't like Judy? Go for Hopkins. You don't like Hopkins? Go for OBJ. You don't like any of them? We can sit here and just
fourth in the AFC East, because that's probably what it would be like.
We're going to be at the bottom of the division. Like, okay, how amazing were the Broncos? Jerry Jeudy was not the Broncos' problem. The Broncos had a lot more issues, like their quarterback not being able to throw the football to anybody, and you can't blame it on Jerry Jeudy. Like, it was his fault when he was there. He was healthy.
He was
produced
28 yards off of 1,000-yard receiver. Did we have one of those? What?
And he had injuries. He had injuries as well.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't fully healthy the whole year. He missed a decent amount of games. So I don't know.
I mean, he was in a terrible
I understand
offense.
That's where we're at. But it shouldn't be. That the mindset of Belichick at this point is not updated. He's living in the past. He's living in the 1940s where you can run the football to win football games and play good defense. That's the only thing that matters. How many teams have a dominant defense and dominant run game and made the Super Bowl recently? It's not the style of play anymore. It's a passing league. It's a passing league. You need a number one receiver.
It is. It is. So, I mean, I do agree with. I mean, they're moving in the right direction, right? Like going and getting Juju Smith-Schuster. It's great. Like, yeah, no one's complaining. Like, at least they went out and spent money on a receiver. But that is not the signing that's going to put the Patriots winning the AFC East. And if it does, I'll bite my tongue. I really will. I hope it is. But we've seen since Tom Brady left, that is not the case. And that is not what's going to win the Patriots AFC East. So that's all I have to say on it. It's not a bad thing. It's just we need to see more. If we want to keep having 8 and 9, 9 and 8 seasons, then what we're doing is fine. But us Patriots fans, we all know how we overreact. We all know how we want it to be because we experienced a 20-year dynasty. That's not what what we're doing is a step in the right direction, but it's a step in the right direction for mediocrity and being a first-round exit in the playoffs.
Exactly. And like Mike says here, when fans want Belichick gone, these are the reasons. You're not winning rings. Not only are we not winning rings, we're not winning playoff games or games in general. So we're not even making the playoffs some of these times. We're last in our division. We're going to be probably last in our division this year unless Aaron Rodgers doesn't end up on the Jets or we make some big moves or some guys work out. I don't know. If you're a true Patriots fan, I don't know how you're okay with Juju Smith-Schuster being our number one receiver and feeling like that's going to be what makes us competitive.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not saying OBJ and D-Hop is going to put you to the Super Bowl. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you need to find out if Mac Jones is going to be a guy who can bring you to a Super Bowl. And by doing that, you got to find out by having weapons around him. And if you put a true number one receiver, if you get OBJ, you get Hopkins, you get whoever, one of those two, or Judy, and Mac Jones and the offense sucks next year, okay, now we know. We're not going to pick up his fifth-year option. We'll play him probably one more year. We'll draft a guy, whatever. We'll look for the next guy. But if you do that and he balls out and he's a top 10, top 8 quarterback, you say, okay, this is something we can work with. And you go from there. And if OBJ is a 1-year thing, at least you know what Mac Jones is. You got to be competitive. You need a number one weapon. You got to do it. I don't know many people that disagree. It seems like where are my entertainers does for some reason, but I don't know.
Yeah. And Carlos asks, how would you guys feel about riding this season out with the core we have, waiting for the 2021 draft class to want extensions, get traded? Next year's prospects are elite too. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably going to be
the waiting game.
Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be the best wide receiver prospect in a while, but I don't expect New England to be that bad to get him. I mean, I hope we're not. I don't want to waste another Mac Jones season to go get one wide receiver and see if that's the case. And if New England's not going to trade for D-Hop or Judy and they have an opportunity to, what makes us think that they're going to go do it next year for a guy and then pay them the big time bucks? Like, to me, the more that New England doesn't do it, the less likely it seems that they're going to do it the next year and the next year and the next year. And it's just going to be a continuous cycle until we see it happen. I don't know that it's going to happen. And where my entertainers, I love Quentin Johnson. I love Zay Flowers, but there's something about New England drafting receivers that scares the crap out of me. And someone asked it too. I hope he's still in here because I've S-Pod right here. He says, why are we unable to draft and develop receivers? I've asked this before too. What's in the development of our wide receivers? Why do we suck at developing wide receivers? Why is that? It can't just be that maybe it is that we suck at evaluating talent, but there's got to be something in development. There's got to be something else to it. And, it could be offensive scheme. It could be whatever, but that's why I want to go get a solidified receiver that is, relatively young, but has NFL experience. And we know what he is. Drafting Quentin Johnston, drafting one of those guys. Yeah, it could be great. And I hope it would be if we draft him, but I just know how New England drafts and it scares the crap out of me. And I don't know. I would rather have an established guy in here and then draft a tackle or a corner that we know Bill Belichick's great at developing and we have success at, and let those guys be our first round picks.
Yeah. And I have to touch on this question real quick. Philly almost beat KC and Mahomes with running, O-line, and defense. Philadelphia had 46 yards rushing outside of Jalen Hurts and 304 yards passing. I don't know where you're talking about that, but Devontae Smith had 100 yards, AJ receiving. AJ Brown had 96. Dallas Goedert had 60. Like, that is not almost beating them by running the football. And the defense could not stop Mahomes at all in the second half. They scored every single drive. So you can't stop these good offenses with elite quarterbacks and number one weapons, or even, look at, I don't know. We can't go back and forth with this guy forever all night because we're going to have to get off at some point.
Yeah.
But look at what adding Tyreek Hill did to Tua. It jumped him into MVP conversation. Look what adding AJ Brown did to Jalen Hurts. Jumped him into MVP conversation. Look what having Debo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle did to Brock Purdy. He's now talked about as a starting quarterback maybe in this league. And I don't know. You need weapons. You need it.
Yeah.
Hurts is a top 5 running back. I don't know. He ran for 70 yards himself. The Chiefs still had 50 yards rushing more than the Eagles. So fact, if you're trying to argue that the Eagles ran the football to beat the Chiefs that game, you weren't watching the same game as us.
Yeah. So yeah, we can banter back and forth all night about this. I'm still on the train to go get an established guy. If that doesn't solve our issues, if Mac Jones is still, struggling or mediocre, then you know where to go, and that's where I stand. But we don't have Tom Brady anymore to mask our issues, and we don't have the greatest quarterback with the greatest coach to, bring whoever you want here on cheap contracts and make it super nice. So that's where I stand on it. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. It's not right or wrong. We just appreciate all you guys being in here to support us and the comments and stuff.
That's not true. Don't tell them there's no wrong or right opinion. That's false. False.
You're right. Justin Ramos has the right opinion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ramos bomb. So, we're getting DeAndre Hopkins too as well. So that obviously means we're not even sniffing DeAndre Hopkins market, I guess, if Ramos reported that. So
yeah. So, but
it is fun. It is fun going back and forth, and I like different people's opinions, like getting good conversation like this. So we appreciate all the banter from
yeah. So if you guys haven't, make sure you guys like and subscribe, comment, share the show with friends. We'll be getting into draft talk. Next week is 5 weeks until the NFL draft, so we'll get into draft talk, mock drafts. Have you guys send us mock drafts, stuff like that. So make sure you guys are subscribed to us so you can see us whenever we go live or post a clip.
Yes. Yeah. And just one last thing here. AJ Brown is the man. Tough to get guys like that. They traded a first-round pick last year. AJ Brown, number one receiver, transformed their offense. You got to invest in these guys. That's what you got to do.
Yep.
So I don't know.
Jalen Hurts was ridiculed, and they wondered if he was the guy. And they go get a guy like AJ Brown, and he takes them to a Super Bowl and has an MVP caliber year, and they know. So yeah,
it's just
that. I mean, you answered your own argument right there, in my opinion. But yeah.
And
it is tough to get guys
we also
like that.
we also could have had AJ Brown. By the way, we drafted Nikhil over him. So
and it's not easy to get AJ. There's not very many AJ Browns in the league, but that if you want to get a guy like AJ Brown, you have to be willing to give up that first round pick and pay him a lot of money, and then see what it does for him. It takes him to the Super Bowl. So yeah, it's. So all right. Well,
always enjoy coming here for the live streams. Is the only place I come to now. We appreciate that, Red Patriot. MA football guy. See you later. Thank you guys for tuning in. Carlos, where are my entertainers? Everybody, Mike. Red Patriot asked if we're excited for the renovations. I am. It's coming together pretty good. I'm going to go see them this summer, going to training camp and stuff like that. So it'll be fun. But
yeah, I'm excited. It'll be cool.
So. Yeah. All right. That's all we got for tonight. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will be back. Jason's got some awesome clips cooking up. He's going to break down some film of some of the new guys and get that rolling. I know you guys love those. So until next time, we will talk to you guys later.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Patriots Drive podcast. Follow us on social media to stay up to date with all things New England Patriots. Make sure you tune in to the next episode and check out patriotsdrive.com for more great content.
We're on to Cincinnati.